In this last lecture regarding fats, we're just going to take a quick peek at some common diseases in the body that are related to fat. Specifically, then, we're going to be talking about cardiovascular diseases, or abbreviated CVD. Collectively, cardiovascular diseases deal with any dysfunction of the heart or blood vessels. Coronary artery disease is kind of a starting place for a lot of these other ones. So this is where we see plaque building up in the arterial walls, and once we start to see that plaque build up, the ability of the blood to flow through that vessel becomes restricted, and either we see decreasing blood flow to the heart, or the heart having to work extra hard to try to pump blood through arteries and veins. We could ultimately see a heart attack or myocardial infarction. This is where the blood vessels that are supplying the heart with blood become blocked or damaged, and the heart, doesn't get enough blood. Stroke is really similar, where we see, plaque buildup in the arteries that would be carrying blood to the brain, and we might actually see a complete blockage or even rupture of the blood vessels supplying the blood to the brain. That's a stroke. And then hypertension, I think a lot of us are familiar, is just high blood pressure. So again, that's sort of indicating if you have that plaque buildup, you narrow the space inside of the artery, and thus the heart has to work harder to push the same volume of blood through, hence a higher blood pressure. Here is that plaque buildup. So atherosclerosis is the term applied to the narrowing of the artery due to plaque buildup in the arterial wall. On the left, you see the normal artery, pretty smooth, wide open space, right? And this is a cross section also, so that you see the muscle, so that we understand that these blood vessels are actually muscular too, which is part of what helps pump. And then the endothelium, which is the inner lining of the arterial wall. So on the atherosclerotic artery, we see inside, in that space between the smooth muscle and the endothelium, first thing to point out is that the endothelium is damaged. So you notice that nice smooth cell, like wall of cells that line the inside of the arterial wall, inside of the artery, that became broken or damaged. And we see kind of the debris, which include lipids, calcium, and other cellular debris because of that damage to these cells here in the endothelium. And then what we start to see forming in this space down here are the macrophages and becoming foam cells. These are the inflammatory pathway coming in here to help heal the damage here. We also see these smooth muscle cells starting to build what's called a fibrous cap. So it's a lot like a scab, basically, happening inside of the arterial wall. So we see the damage to the epithelium, and then just a natural inflammatory response to work to heal that damage, build a new healthy endothelial lining, and then basically restore this to normal. So this actually happens not too infrequently, where we'd see damage to the endothelium. We know smoking to be a big cause of here, but any sort of toxic chemical or molecule that comes into the body, literally even excess sugar consumption over a long period of time, can cause damage to that endothelial wall. So this response is totally normal, but it becomes problematic, again, when we talked about pro-inflammatory eicosanoids and anti-inflammatory eicosanoids. We do ultimately want to see that this process kind of wraps up, so that we have this damage, we have an inflammatory response to fix it, and then, within days, weeks, we have an anti-inflammatory response to heal it and restore it to normal. So it's really important to note that atherosclerotic plaque doesn't just form out of nowhere. It's initiated by damage to the epithelium. Plaque is a normal response to heal the damage, and it's just that we need to either kind of a combination of not continually causing damage to the endothelial wall, and also having a balance of pro and anti-inflammatory fatty acids and eicosanoids in the body, so that this inflammatory healing process can ultimately subside and thus restore the artery to normal. All right, so I've mentioned at least once or twice that many of the leading causes of death in the United States are based in diet and lifestyle. So the diseases that I've highlighted with the red star are known to be related to diet and lifestyle. So heart disease and all of the subsequent diseases, including stroke, heart attack, these are definitely related to diet and lifestyle, Alzheimer's disease and diabetes. And then the two in yellow, there's substantial evidence anyway to suggest that they are related to diet and lifestyle. So kidney diseases and lower respiratory diseases. These data are from 2015 from the Center for Disease Control. And I don't think these links work. But you can just do a quick Google search for Centers for Disease Control, leading causes of death, and you can find a lot more information there. But anyway, important to note, especially when we're talking about heart disease and stroke, that these diseases could theoretically be prevented, or if they start, they can be reversed simply through diet and lifestyle measures. Risk factors for cardiovascular diseases are going to be, in the schematic, you'll see kind of on the left side some of the risk factors, and on the right side some of the lifestyle dietary things we can do to reverse or prevent. So being overweight, being physically inactive or sedentary, smoking, having a history already of hypertension, type 2 diabetes mellitus, chronic inflammation, I should say, and abnormalities in your blood lipids. So all of these things would be risk factors for cardiovascular disease. Some things that we can't do too much on, gender and ethnicity, aging, and genes and hereditary factors. But ultimately, this makes up a pretty small piece of the pie here. And what's really cool is that the largest piece of the pie are the things that we can do to prevent cardiovascular disease. I should put a big fat X through this because vitamins and antioxidants, we'll see as we move into our vitamins and minerals lectures, really come from fruits and vegetables, and to a lesser extent beans and legumes and nuts and seeds. So taking them as supplements, we actually are finding really substantial evidence that taking vitamins or antioxidants or minerals in isolated form, like as a singular supplement or vitamin, can actually have more deleterious or negative effects on the body than they can have positive effects over the long term. So really, when we're talking about vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, let's talk about food and getting them first from whole foods. I think this is the last slide here. So again, just kind of going over things that we can do to decrease cardiovascular disease and risk of cardiovascular disease. So not even avoiding it, but also avoiding any chance of getting cardiovascular diseases. So the biggest thing would really be just minimizing consumption of processed foods, because we know processed foods contain these trans fats, contain way too much sugar, usually don't contain enough normal healthy fats, usually contain nothing in the sense of fiber, and often contain a lot of synthetic or made-up ingredients. Again, looking at the Center for Science and the Public Interest, their Chem Cuisine website, to find out how these synthetic ingredients might be very harmful for our health. With a decreased consumption of processed foods, increasing consumption of our whole plant foods, again, because these are really the sources of those key antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals. So vegetables, fruits, legumes, grains. Here is also the really big one we've sort of talked around and about, is maintaining the balance of omega-3 to omega-6 at 1:1. Understanding that most of the American diet is processed foods. These are going to be really high in omega-6 fats and really low in omega-3 fats. So even moving more towards a, I wrote this ratio backwards. This would be a omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of 4:1. So knowing that most Americans consume more omega-6 fats than we do omega-3, even bringing that ratio back down closer to 1:1 would be helpful. We do that again by intake of these foods that are really rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Hitting our physical activity on a daily basis, smoking cessation if you're smoking, and being aware of saturated fat intake, and then reducing it if necessary, but not getting too overboard with saturated fats.